Well, it's so good to have all of you with us today. We are in part 3 of the series, Money Talks. And let me ask you, have you ever had to pay the stupid tax? You know the stupid tax, you make that financial decision, you put that thing on a credit card, you get that loan at that rate, and all of a sudden a day, a week, a month later, you look back and say, why did I say yes? Well, I've paid the stupid tax before. It was years and years ago. I was newly married. Kim and I just purchased a new house. It was kind of a fixer-upper, and so we were fixing it up, and we're having to buy a lot of stuff at Home Depot and Lowe's, putting stuff on the credit card, and needed a new TV for that wall, and so Best Buy had a 0% interest, same as cash deals, and we did that, and we needed new furniture, and more 0% interest, same as cash. And then at our work, Kim and I worked at the same place, the same church, and we started putting church expenses on our personal credit card. And then one day, I was meeting an adult leader, a high-level leader, and he worked kind of close to my house. So he said, I'll just meet you at your house. And I was like, oh, we can sit out at our patio. It was a beautiful Vegas day. And so I pulled up to my house. He was already there. He got out of his car. I got out of my car. I'm like, hey, John, good to see you. And, we're doing that small talk. And as we were small talking in my driveway, I noticed that there was a guy who had parked just right across the street. And he had gotten out of his car. And I kind of ignored him because I didn't know him. And then I could see that he was walking closer to me. And as he got closer to me, I kind of made eye contact. And I just was nice and smiled and said, hi. And he goes, is your name Chris? I thought that was strange. And I was like, yes. And he goes, is your name Chris Trethewey? I'm like, wow, that's really strange. How in the world do you know my full name? Well, I replied with yes. And he handed me an envelope and walked away. Didn't say a word. Well, I acted normal as I invited John into my house. And as we walked into my house, I said to John, hey, John, I just got to run upstairs. I'll be right back. Make yourself comfortable. I ran upstairs, and as I ran upstairs, I opened the envelope, and my heart sank. You see, I had just gotten served by a credit card company because I had, stuck my head in the ground and started to ignore some of our debts. That night, I had to face Kim and tell her, hey, we're in a financial hole. That night, I sat at my home desk, and I opened up every envelope of every bill to every credit card, every business we owed money to, and the hole was massive. And we had to pay the stupid tax. We cut up our credit cards, didn't have credit cards for years and years and years. Over the next several years, we paid everything off. And I tell you, I think about that season of life, and here's what I want you to know. Maybe you're paying the stupid tax right now, or maybe you know you're going to have to pay it. You've just stuck your head in the ground, and you're just trying to ignore it, but you know it's going to bite you. Here's what I want you to know. I don't want you to feel guilt. I don't want you to feel shame. In fact, every person I know who I put in that wise financial bucket, they're just wise with their finances, has a story about paying the stupid tax at some point in their life. But here's the thing. They learned from it. They grew from it. They leaned into it and said, hey, I never want to go back there. And that's one of the things I'm so proud of Kim and I. We just said, we're never going to go back there, and we haven't. So I want you to feel encouraged that, guess what? You can learn, you can grow, and you're not alone. In fact, the vast majority of people have paid some type of stupid tax. You see, when it comes to money is maniacal in its manipulation. It just is. You see, money is so good at whispering, I'm all yours. And then it goes on, it says, I'll make you happy. And then it's going to say, spend all of me. Just spend all of me. Why? Because I'm all yours, and I will make you happy. And then once you spend it all, plus some, it says, but you need more. You need more. And those credit cards and those 0% interest rates and those 8% interest rates and all the banks are like, hey, we'll give you more money. And then money will whisper, I own you, and I'm your master. You see, give me a few moments, and go on a small journey with me. And just maybe you'll find yourself someplace at some point in this all too common financial situation. Take your income. I don't know what your income is. You know what your income is. And for the vast majority of people, their financial situation, their financial issues is not an income issue. It's how you spend your money issue. Maybe for a few of you, you need to increase your income. And if you find yourself in that situation, I want to encourage you. Now is a time for you to increase your income. Now is a time for you maybe to work a second job. Now is a time for you to find a skill set, work on a skill set, get some knowledge around a skill set. I mean, you can make some great money if you just get some knowledge, work really hard, and start to expand what you can do. So maybe you need to increase your income. But for the vast majority of you, again, it's not an income issue. It's how you spend your money issue. So take whatever your income it is, and all of a sudden you find yourself, you got a house payment. Now, what the experts say is your house payment, your mortgage should be somewhere around 25% of your income. Now, maybe you're thinking to yourself, your percentage of your mortgage, your income is a lot higher. Here's the thing. Banks will give you a whole lot more money than that, won't they? I mean, I've heard people say, well, I was approved for. I'm like, yeah, just because a bank has approved you for a much bigger mortgage doesn't mean you should take it. Remember, banks, they don't care about your financial health. What they care about is making money off of you. Have you ever walked into a bank building? They're beautiful. They're making money. So maybe right now you're house poor. Why? Because your mortgage is too big. But you got your mortgage, and now you have to pay it. And here's the thing with your house payment. It's not just your mortgage. It costs money to own a house, doesn't it? I mean, your utilities, your gas, your power, your water, trash. I mean, it costs money. Right now, I've started to replace some of the toilets in our house because they're getting really, really old, and they're different kinds. It's a mess. And what I've discovered is toilets are expensive. I literally looked at my family one day. I'm like, I'm not buying any more toilets. I'm just going to dig a hole in the backyard. There you go. That's free and cheap. Maybe not the best plan, but I'm just saying it's a lot cheaper, right? Homes cost money. And then you start thinking to yourself, well, I drive to work and I work hard. I deserve a car, right? Remember money's maniacal manipulation. You've earned it. You work hard. You deserve it. You should drive something new. I mean, a new car smell, that smells amazing, doesn't it? And then your spouse needs a car. So now you have 2 car payments. And again, you can get loans. And that salesperson, they were so smooth. They asked you the question, what do you want your payment to be? And before you know it, you said yes. The interest rate's 9% for 9 years. Got the payment where it needed to be, even though it's a depreciating asset. But you got 2 car payments. And you got kids. And kids, they're expensive, aren't they? They cost money. The average, they say, is around $21,000 per child per year. Kids, they eat food. They need clothing, especially as they rapidly grow. They break things in the house. Have you ever noticed that? I find myself all the time walking around my house going, I have to repair that now? And then there's just living expenses. Groceries. Costs a lot of money, especially with inflation. And all those other things that you just have to spend money on to live. And then you think about the thing you don't want to think about. It's your school loans. Do you have school loans that, now you're earning income from a degree that your income's not even remotely tethered to, but you're still paying for that school loan? It's just money going out, money going out. And then you look and you're like, man, I don't have that much money left. But there's more things for me to spend money on. And so there's the credit card. And you say to yourself, well, Christmas is coming up. My kids, they need a nice Christmas. So I'm going to put on the credit card. But I'm disciplined. In January, I will pay it off. But you get to January and, well, all of a sudden you start thinking about summer vacation, and you gotta put some deposits down on summer vacation. You got again, work hard. I need a good vacation. I need a rest. My kids deserve it. And so you start putting that on a credit card, and then all of a sudden you need new clothing, and your kids are growing fast. They need new clothing, and then school clothing, and you put it on a credit card, and then all of a sudden Amazon Prime days, or you're bored one day and you're walking through TJ Maxx and there's sales everywhere. And like, but it's such a good deal. And then you need a TV. And then one day you get a text message from your spouse, and the text is, well, your home's HVAC just blew up. And you have no extra money. And so you have to somehow put it on some sort of credit to pay for the HVAC. Why? Because you can't go the summer without air conditioning, can you? And then somewhere in the back of your mind, you start thinking about savings, retirement. And you're like, there's no way. There's no way. There's no money left. And money says, I own you. I'm your master. You see, the tagline for the series is, what is your money saying to you about you? Because your money is talking. The question is, are you listening? Are you paying attention? Are you facing reality? Now today I want to be very, very practical, because I get that maybe you're in that I'm paying the stupid tax. Maybe you're in a place where you put your head in the ground, but you know that it's going to bite you. Maybe you're in a place where you're trying to make your way out of it. Maybe you're in a place where you're just starting to have the conversation. Maybe you're just sick and tired of being sick and tired of your financial situation. And what's incredible is the Bible gives us so much wisdom when it comes to our money. Now, all the wisdom today we're going to look at is found in the book of Proverbs. And there's a couple of just important insights when it comes to the book of Proverbs, because I think it's going to help you understand this entire collection of wisdom writing. In fact, two of the most common words in the book of Proverbs is wisdom and fear. The ancient Hebrew word for wisdom actually has everything to do with not just knowledge, but applied knowledge. Has everything to do with practical skills. In fact, one of the places early on in the Old Testament where this ancient Hebrew word is used is connected to artisans and craftsmen. It's a descriptive word for a craftsman, for an artisan who have learned a skill and have now perfected it. They've applied it to their life. And so when you think about wisdom, it's not just knowledge, right? It's applied knowledge. It's taking that knowledge and moving it into action. And the second word is fear. And the word fear doesn't mean like, oh, I'm scared of snakes. It has everything to do with reverence and awe of God, and this moral mindset to say, God knows best. And I'm going to follow his wisdom. I'm going to apply it to my life. Why? Because in honor, in awe, in reverence of God, and me knowing that God knows me best and knows what's best for me, I'm going to put it into action. So when you think about Proverbs, I don't relegate it to just good advice. I mean, there is good advice in it, but that just stops so short of what Proverbs is really about. It's really about God's invitation, saying, hey, why don't you learn wisdom from previous generations? Hey, there's people that have paid the stupid tax. Hey, there's people that have followed me. And God's like, hey, just learn. Hey, come and learn from people who have gone before you. In fact, in Proverbs, there's two kind of groups of people with two labels, the fools and the wise. The fools are the people that reject God's knowledge, reject God's wisdom, who says, I know what God wants me to do, wants me to live out, but I'm just going to go my own way. And the wise are people who will follow God's knowledge, will follow God's wisdom. Now, one more insight when it comes to the book of Proverbs, this collection of wisdom writings. So many times people read Proverbs and it sounds like a promise. If I do, then this will happen. And it's so easy to read these Proverbs and and actually feel like they're promises. Again, if I do, then this will happen. But in fact, what you need to kind of lens Proverbs through is these are probabilities, not promises. Let me explain. One of the most famous Proverbs is, train up a child in the way he and the way she should go, and they won't turn from it. But if you're a parent, you can train up, you can raise up, you can coach up, you can discipline up a child, and at some point, they're just going to do what they want to do. You see, if it was a promise, it was like, if I do, then this will happen. But when you start thinking about Proverbs as probabilities, the probability is if you train up a child to walk in the ways of God, to follow God, to apply God's knowledge to their life, then the probability is when they get older, guess what? They're going to live a life that reflects God. But it doesn't always happen that way. So when we think about Proverbs, and especially today, these wisdom insights to our finances, again, the probability is really high that if you follow these wisdom insights, that it's going to turn out well for you. Not 100%, but again, a pretty high probability. So where do we start? Well, we got to start here. And when it comes to wisdom and finances, the first thing I want to encourage you to do, you got to seek wise counsel. Now, in Proverbs chapter 12, this is what we learned. The way of fools seems right to them, but the wise listen to advice. Right? Wise people that listen, apply knowledge to God from God, and apply it to their life. Right? We want to be wise people. We don't want to be fools. We don't want to reject God's knowledge, His wisdom. Right? And so, guess what? Wise people listen to advice. And my encouragement is you got to listen to wise people. People that will be honest with you. It's like, yeah, this was a stupid tax I paid, but this is what I learned from. I haven't repeated it. This is how it's helped me. Again, I don't want you to pay the stupid tax, but hey, here's some wisdom, here's some knowledge. I would encourage you to find a financial advisor, someone who will will help guide you. I have personally talked with multiple different financial advisors that have given me really great insight when it comes to finances. So seek wise counsel. And all of that leads to the second kind of step is to develop a plan. You got to have a plan for your money. You need to tell your money what to do, because if you don't tell your money what to do, your money will just do. So you got to have a plan. The wisdom writer writes it this way in Proverbs chapter 21. The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty. Haste are those quick decisions, those knee-jerk decisions, those financial decisions where you're just like, I should have walked away. I should have said no. I should have pushed pause. I should have sought wise counsel. And all of a sudden, you are now locked in. And that's why you got to have a plan. And wise plans, good plans, solid plans, right, lead to profit. It's going to lead to you living with a healthy financial framework. So I can't encourage you enough to sign up and attend Financial Peace University. I can't encourage you enough to do that. It's kicking off this week, and we've actually had multiple people now step up that say, we want to financially help people attend Financial Peace University. And that is amazing. Why? Because people who have gone through it saying, this has changed my life, and I'm willing to help other people attend this, to help them financially. Why? Because they believe in you so much, and they believe in Financial Peace University. So I can't encourage you enough to sign up together or you sign up to go through Financial Peace. And the second thing I would encourage you to do is Ramsey Solutions has an app called Every Dollar, and it will help track every dollar that you have, where you spend it, and will help you develop a plan so that you tell your money what to do. And again, there's a financial investment there. It's going to cost you a little bit, but it's worth every dollar for you to have a plan, for you to start telling your money what you want your money to do. Because again, if you don't tell your money, it will start telling you what it wants you to do. And that always leads right, to a financial hole. Now, all of that leads to 4 very specific actions when it comes to, well, our money. Action number 1 is this: attack and avoid debt. Attack and avoid debt at all costs. In Proverbs chapter 22, it says, the rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. In part 2, I talked about, the question that we mined up from Jesus was, who's the owner? And so many times we want to put me or I and God, right? Those are who's the owner? And all of a sudden I just said, unless you're in debt. And if you're in debt, guess what? That company, that business, they're now the owner. Don't be slave to the lender. So, minus your mortgage. We're going to set mortgages aside, right? Let's set that aside. All your other debt. I want to encourage you to first attack it. Attack it. In Financial Peace, they talk about the debt snowball, where you go from the smallest debt to the largest debt, and you just keep attacking the next one up, the next one up, the next one up, the next one up. I mean, you got to have a plan to get rid of all debt. I mean, eventually your house, but I'm talking all debt except for your house right now. Attack it. And what does that mean? Well, if you're married, you need to sit down with your spouse, and you need to have that plan together. You got to be on the same page. If you have kids, and if they're old enough to understand, invite them in at their age of understanding to let them know, as a family, we're going to be attacking debt. And maybe that means for you, you got to get radical, and maybe you need to sell one of those cars. Why? Because you can't afford it. Maybe for you, you need to look at every subscription and start canceling them all for a season. Not saying that one day you can't bring Netflix back. I'm saying for this season, you're going to get radical. You're going to free up every dollar you can, because you're going to start telling every dollar what you want it to do. Maybe there's a season for you where you look at your kids and say, hey, we're going to eat at home. Why? Because eating out, it's really expensive. Mother's Day, I looked at my girls and said, you know what? Let's eat at home. Why? I told them why. We don't need to spend the money. We can still honor mom and have an amazing meal. And I opened up our freezer, and I found a couple steaks stuck in the back. I'm like, we can thaw those out. And then I found a bag of shrimp that had been in there for a while. They were kind of frosty. But guess what? They were still good. I thawed those out. We had some potatoes, and we had some salad. We had an amazing meal that we found in our freezer and our pantry. Saved a lot of money. And maybe in this season, you just attack debt you just cut down every expense you can. And once you're done attacking debt, just avoid it. Avoid debt at all costs. Before you make financial decisions, seek wise counsel. That's a great way to push pause. So go and find someone and say, hey, what do you think about this decision? Have those people that you bring close, that you look at, and they're making wise decisions. And ask them questions. Save patiently. Again, parents, it's good for your kids to see you saying, you know what, not right now. We're saving up for this vacation. We're going to go on a small vacation this year because we're going to save up for a couple years for this vacation, right? Your kids need to see you saying, you know what, we're just not going to spend money that we don't have. Search for deals. I've been looking for this one woodworking tool for over a year on Facebook Marketplace. I could buy it new, not going to. I've been looking at Facebook Marketplace, and some people, what they want for used tools is ridiculous. And I just said no. I waited and waited and waited. I talked about it with my family. They all knew I'm still looking for a couple tools. I waited until I found the right tool at the right price that I could pay cash for. Over a year. And then guess what? You got to say no. Say no. It's okay. Again, parents, kids need to hear you say no. No, we're not going to. Why? We don't need to spend the money, or we don't have the money, depending on your situation. Again, Mother's Day, no, we're not going to eat out. We're going to eat at home. And we had a great meal, right? We just don't need to spend the money. It's great. It's healthy, right? That you tell your money, no, not going to. Seek wise counsel, save patiently, search for deals, say no. Got to attack and avoid debt. And all of that leads to number 2. You got to save and invest. The wisdom writer in Proverbs chapter 22 writes, says this, the wise store up choice food, the best food, and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. Fools eat it all. Fools consume it all. And that's where a lot of people, maybe you, are living right now. You're just gulping it all down. You have nothing stored up. But the wise, they store up choice food and olive oil. Olive oil back then was used not just for cooking, but I mean they used it for lighting in their lamps so that they could see. They're like, hey, there's something about storing up. It's healthy. It's wise to store up. So 2 areas that I want to encourage you to store up. Savings. And when I say savings, I'm talking about your emergency fund. Maybe for you, you start with $1,000. You start working. You have a plan to save up $1,000 for what if something breaks? What if something explodes? What if, right? The what ifs, right? But you want to increase it to 3 to 6 months. I keep our emergency fund in a high yield savings account. Right now it's earning 4.2 some percent. It's been fluctuating with interest rates, but I'm telling you, I'm making money off of our emergency fund. And the emergency fund, I'm telling you, when you get to 3 to 6 months, it is a game changer. I had just landed in Tanzania last year. I literally just walked out of the terminal, connected to Wi-Fi at the airport, and as a crazy kind of scenario of events, but I got a text message that caused me to call my wife to say, hey, what's going on? And she didn't want to tell me. Why? Because she didn't want to ruin my experience. But I found out, and I called her. I'm like, what's going on? She goes, our air conditioner and our furnace both died. Now, that was a kick to the gut. But we had an emergency fund. We have been working so hard saving up our emergency fund. And I tell you, yeah, it was like I did not want to hear that news. But guess what? We had the money to pay for it. You got to work on your emergency fund. And the second thing I want to encourage you, you got to invest. You got to invest. Retirement. 10, 15% to your retirement. I know some of you are like, there's no way. Not now, but you can get there. If you attack your debt, you can get there. I just read this statistic that 26% of 59-year-olds have zero saved for retirement. Start now. Parents, start modeling this for your kids. My oldest daughter, I helped her last year open up a Charles Schwab account and a Roth IRA, and she's still paying for school. But I said, start now. Put something in there every month. Get in the habit of putting, even if it's a small dollar amount, putting something in. Just a couple of months ago, we increased that. And I'm like, see, there you go. You haven't even missed that money. Just increase it and increase it again. When you graduate from college, increase it again. I'm trying to help her get in the habit. Start now. Compounding interest. I tell you, it is a game changer. Whatever your age, start now and start putting money in for your retirement. All that leads to number 3. You got to leave a legacy. And the wisdom writer in Proverbs chapter 13 writes, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's. And I'm not spend a lot of time on this one, but here's the thing with this. There's something about not saving up money so that your children and your children's children are lazy. I'm not saying that, but there's something about a blessing that you can hand out generationally in the right way, with the right guardrails, with the right heart that actually blesses, and that blessing actually grows from generation to generation to generation. There's something spiritual to that. There's something wise to that. And then number 4 is to give generously. In Proverbs chapter 3, it says to honor the Lord with your wealth, with your first fruits of your crops. To honor. What does honor mean? Well, that's the who's your master question. That's it. Who's your master? Your money or God? And the wisdom writer says, hey, honor God. Make God your master. And then the wisdom writer says, with your first fruits. That's a who's the owner question. That's a, are you the owner or is God the owner? And now you are the steward of your money. Are you honoring God with your first fruits, with your first portion of your income? You see, the Bible frames it as the tithe, and that word tithe simply means 10%. It's a percentage. Your first 10% to give back to God. God says, hey, keep the other 90%, but honor me, give to me. Are you putting God first? Are you putting God first? Are you honoring him in awe and reverence? See, God says wise people, people that follow him, will honor him first with their money. You see, God doesn't want or need your money. God wants to be number one in your life. In fact, I would say as a pastor of Tri-County Church, this isn't even about you giving money to TCC. In fact, go find another church. Tithe to them. That pastor will be grateful. But what this is about you putting God first, making God your master, honoring with awe and reverence God with the thing that's competing for the number one spot, and that's your money. And you need to tell your money who's priority. And you do that by giving, by tithing generously to God's church, his vehicle that he set in motion to tell the world about his son, Jesus. Now, we think about this order. Number 1, 2, 3, and 4. But in fact, that's not the right order. The right order is, well, it looks more like that. You start by giving generously, putting God first. You telling your money that God's master, not it. And you have to put God first. Your first fruits, honor God. With your first fruits, honor God. Now, we come back and we look at this diagram, this image, right? And this just produces so much stress, doesn't it? I mean, it produces so much chaos. I'm sure that within your marriage, right, if your finances kind of look like this, right, there's a lot of stress now within marriage. I remember, again, when I paid my stupid tax, right, there was pressure in our marriage, but together we led together through it. We worked together through it. I just want to give you, well, a new image. The image we get from the wisdom writer in Proverbs of how we can silence money's maniacal manipulation, and we can start telling our money what to do. You see, what it should look like is we take our income and we give our first fruits to God. We give generously. We give a percentage to God, to his church, his vehicle that he set in motion to share Jesus with the world. We start there. That's what wise people do. Wise people start with God, first fruits. Then we save. Emergency fund, retirement, right? We give first, we save next. And that's where we start. Then we start looking at, well, how do I live off the rest? Right? You got a mortgage, got utilities, got to pay that. Maybe for you need to downsize your house. Maybe your mortgage is too much. And maybe you have to make a hard decision to downsize your house, right? To get a mortgage that actually fits your income. Then from there, you got kids, you got your living expenses, and guess what? It's okay to look at your kids and say no. It's okay to look at your kids and say, hey, we're just going to save patiently, and we're going to save up for some things. It's okay to look at your kids and say, hey, we're seeking some deals, and we can't find any, so we're just not going to until. It's good for your kids to hear you say things like that. It's great. You're teaching them. You're teaching them for them to master their money, not their money mastering them. And then you start looking at the rest of the things. And you still keep margin. And there in the margin is where you'll experience financial peace. There in the margin is where you'll experience financial peace. And that's what I desire for you. Give first. Save next. Live off the rest. You tell your money what you want your money to do. Let's pray. Lord, I just ask that you will just guide us, be with us, that shame and guilt won't be attached to this, but this is an opportunity for us to learn from past, present decisions and to put you first, and for us to tell our money what you have given us, generously given us, what to do. In your name I pray.